Empires vanished, kings were forgotten, but the gold they worshipped still survives today. For thousands of years, humans risked everything to possess something they could barely create. Men crossed deadly deserts and dangerous seas, carrying fortunes small enough to fit inside one hand. Because whoever controlled the gold could control armies, influence kings, and reshape the future of entire civilizations. That tiny piece of metal would become the foundation of fortunes, kingdoms, wars, and civilizations. It is small, heavy, almost strangely ordinary.
It cannot feed you.
It cannot cure a disease. It cannot shelter you from a storm. It cannot power a machine or grow a field of wheat. And yet, for thousands of years, human beings have crossed deserts to find it. They have sailed oceans for it. They have invaded kingdoms for it. They have enslaved people for it. They have murdered for it. And they have built entire civilizations around it. Kings have buried themselves with it, believing it could follow them into the next world. Conquerors have torn apart ancient societies searching for it. Governments have built monetary systems around it.
And they take you down.
Banks have stored enormous quantities of it beneath the ground. And even today, when most money exists as numbers on screens rather than metal in our hands, nations still buy gold. Central banks still accumulate it. Investors still panic and run toward it when the world becomes unstable. So what is it about this strange yellow metal? Why gold? Why, among all the materials found on Earth, did humanity decide that this one was worth protecting, worshipping, stealing, and fighting over? The answer begins long before banks. Long before coins. Long before the idea of money itself. It begins with a discovery so ancient that we may never know exactly when it happened. Somewhere in the distant past, a human being found a piece of gold lying in the earth. Perhaps it was shining beside a river. Perhaps it was exposed in a rock. Perhaps it was picked up simply because it looked different from everything else. There was something immediately unusual about it. Gold does not rust like iron. It does not turn green like copper. It does not decay like wood. It does not disappear like food. A piece of gold can sit in the ground for thousands of years and emerge looking almost exactly as it did when it went in. And unlike many other metals, gold can be shaped without requiring the extreme temperatures that later civilizations would need to work harder materials. To ancient humans, this must have seemed almost unnatural. A material that resisted time itself. And perhaps that is why some of the earliest civilizations began treating gold as something more than a useful substance. They treated it as something sacred. In ancient Egypt, gold became deeply connected to the gods and the afterlife. The Egyptians associated the metal with the sun, with divine power, and with permanence. Pharaohs were surrounded by gold in death because the material seemed perfectly suited to the idea of eternity. The dead did not simply disappear into the earth. They entered another world. And gold, which seemed almost incapable of dying, became part of that journey. Imagine the workshops of ancient Egypt. Craftsmen bending thin sheets of metal. Hammering. Polishing. Shaping necklaces, masks, bracelets, ceremonial objects. Some of these objects were intended for the living. Others were made for people who would never use them. They were buried inside tombs, hidden beneath the earth, surrounded by the wealth of a civilization that believed death was not the end. And then, thousands of years later, archaeologists opened those tombs. The gold was still there.
The people were gone.
The kingdoms were gone.
The language had faded.
But the metal remained. And that may be the first great secret of gold. Human beings die. Empires disappear. Gold waits. But the Egyptians were not alone in their fascination. Across the ancient world, civilizations began to recognize the extraordinary qualities of this metal. Gold could be transported relatively easily. It could be divided. It could be melted and reshaped. It was scarce enough to be valuable, but durable enough to preserve that value. And, perhaps most importantly, everyone could recognize it. That last quality would become revolutionary.
Because humanity had a problem.
As civilizations grew larger, people needed ways to exchange goods between strangers.
A farmer could grow wheat. A fisherman could catch fish. A craftsman could make tools.
But what happened when the fisherman wanted shoes? What if the shoemaker didn't want fish? But these are the finest catch today. Thank you, but I require leather for my work, not more fish.
Barter worked in small communities.
It became increasingly difficult as societies expanded.
Something else was needed. Something everyone could agree had value. And gold was waiting. It was not perfect, but it was better than almost anything else available. And once people began measuring it, weighing it, and assigning agreed-upon values, something extraordinary happened. Gold stopped being merely a beautiful object. It became a system. The idea of money was beginning to take shape.
But there was a problem. Not all gold was the same size.
Not everyone trusted the scales,
And people could cheat.
a clever merchant could mix gold with cheaper metals. A dishonest ruler could reduce the purity. So civilizations began solving the problem. They began stamping symbols onto pieces of metal. The mark declared, "This piece has been tested. This piece has a known weight.
This piece can be trusted.
The first true coins appeared. And with them came something far more powerful than a convenient way to buy things. They created trust between strangers. They allowed trade to expand across enormous distances. They helped kings pay soldiers. They helped merchants build fortunes. They helped governments collect taxes. Gold had become more than metal. It had become trust made physical. But gold had another quality that made it even more powerful. It was difficult to produce. Finding it required labor.
Transporting.
Protecting.
Controlling its supply. These difficulties made gold,
And scarcity creates value.
but scarcity alone is not enough.
A rare object can be useless.
Gold was scarce and useful. But there was something else. Gold was remarkably stable. It did not change easily. This meant that wealth stored in gold could survive political chaos, wars, and collapsing kingdoms.
A farmer could bury gold before an invasion.
A merchant could carry it across borders. A king could lock it inside a vault. The wealth could wait. It became a way to preserve wealth across time. And that made it extremely attractive to people who feared the future. And humans have always feared the future. But gold's story was about to become much larger. Because once gold became trusted as money, it began connecting civilizations that had never met before. Trade routes expanded. Empires grew richer. And suddenly, gold was no longer just something humans found in rivers and rocks. It was becoming power. For thousands of years, gold has survived the rise and fall of civilizations, empires, and kings. It built fortunes, funded armies, protected families, and connected distant civilizations through trade. Even when kingdoms disappeared, the gold they left behind continued waiting beneath the ruins. Today, gold still carries the memory of everything humanity once believed wealth and security should be. Gold began as something hidden in the earth, but humanity turned it into a symbol of power, trust, wealth, and survival.
Perhaps gold never had power of its own. Perhaps humanity simply decided that it did.
Kings fought for it, empires conquered for it, and ordinary people died believing it could save them. And somewhere beneath the ruins of forgotten worlds, more stories of gold may still be waiting to be discovered. Maybe the greatest treasure was never the gold itself, but the power people gave it over their lives. The history of gold may be ancient, but the human obsession with it is far from over. If you enjoyed this journey through the incredible history of gold, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you never miss the next story from history.